All right. Well, we'll get started today. Once again, this is In Vivo, a live discussion with Ron Harrod and David Hinojosa, our high school football writers. Ron, David, who's the team to beat this year?
Well, our top team is Steele. Just when you look at it from just a pure talent standpoint, especially on the offensive side, this is a team that can put up a lot of points. You know, with Chad Warner, quarterback, he was our offensive player of the year last year. He's going to UTEP. Got a couple of great targets with Jalen Cooper, wide receiver, and Royal Capel, who's been a starter since he was a freshman. Game breaker guy, great speed. And then really great running back, Jonathan Hatton Jr. I believe he's a junior, and he's committed to Oklahoma. So they put up a lot of points last year. I think they're going to put up a lot of points this year. Defensively, they got to rework it a little bit, but just from a pure on the paper team, they're our best team.
They're the team most likely to make a run this year. I mean, sometimes some you get in the playoffs, and sometimes these brackets, it's like, oh, we're facing Lake Travis in the second round. Good luck.
Well, that's not going to be the case this year. Not in the second round. Now, what makes the 6A playoffs interesting is you don't know what division you're going to be in. And last year, Steele made a run to the state semifinals because they were not in not because. I don't want to say because. I want to say it helped that Lake Travis and Westlake were in the other division, so they didn't have to play them. This year, I think Steele's path is going to be, if they are the district champion and they do make it to the playoffs, or if as a district champion, their run's going to go through South Texas because they have shifted the districts around. Yep. So what was 27 6A, which is their old district, that's the one that would face the Austin schools in the second round. This time they're in 29 6A, and they're looking at going through the Valley and the Laredo schools through their first 2-3 rounds, I think. So look, I'm a Rio Grande Valley guy, and I don't like to dog on them, but it is an easier path. And so I think just from that standpoint, I think Steele is set up for a long run, and really any team that comes out of 29 6A from San Antonio is set up for a good run there.
Yeah. All right. Just a reminder to our viewers today, put your questions into the chat, and we will answer them in the timely fashion once we would discuss some of the bigger issues. And we discussed realignment a little bit. What does that kind of look like for the rest of teams that, are not Steele making these runs?
Well, let's see here. Well, the 27, what's 27 6A is the old 29 6A. They basically swap. It's the north side districts. They're the ones that are going to have to probably play the Austin schools in the second round. I think that's going to be tough. Excuse me, I had that wrong. 27 6A is the Northeast and Brandeis and Clark. So that I got that wrong. The traditional north side district, that's 28 6A. So they're also on a different path there. So that's just kind of switched things around. Now, one team that I think they're kind of in a rebuilding mode, and it's Smithson Valley. Smithson Valley, last year, they made it to the state's finals out of Region 3. Now they're going to be in Region 4 in their division. That's an easier path, I think. There's a couple of teams from the Valley that could give some trouble, Edinburgh, Vela, PSJ North. But to me, I think any team coming out of their district, which includes Piper, New Braunfels, Wagner, those type of teams, I think if they can get into the playoffs, they got a good chance to get to the state semifinals.
And there's a bunch of good teams in that district, like you said, with Piper. They're having a really top game to start the season off against Bernie, who's moving up to the 5A ranks. I know Piper has a receiver, Isaiah Champagne, that last year played in the playoffs with a broken hand and still had multiple 100-yard games. They do have a new quarterback, Caden Keith, that we haven't seen at Piper, but from what the coach tells me and other people, it seems like they, have a quarterback to replace Jake South, who was one of our Offensive Player of the Year finalists, right, and he led our area in passing yards.
Yeah. And the Piper's moving up. I think they were Division 2 last year, now moving up to Division 1, and they're in a pretty tough district with Smithson Valley. Bernie Champion's one of those teams. They've kind of been off a little last couple of years, but they've always been a team that I think is going to be competitive. I think they're going to be competitive in this district. And then Wagner, I mean, those guys are just tough there, man. They play
run the ball well.
They play hard-nosed football because they run that option game, and they don't take any plays off. And they're physical. And then Seguin has this Corey Daly, the quarterback there. He's been a freshman. He's been a starter since his freshman year. He's the coach's son, real smart guy. And I think he's really elevated himself, I think, on the recruiting rankings. And I think
one of our top 5 quarterbacks that we named.
And he's a junior right now. So, he's going to be tough. So that's a pretty tough district there. But I think, honestly, I think anyone who gets out of that district, I think they got a chance to make a good run.
Yeah, as Ron mentioned, we are naming our top 5 position players or players at each position throughout the week. So go to expressnews.com to check out that. And we just came out with quarterbacks yesterday. I think that's Ron.
Yep. Today we have running backs and wide receivers. And we will have athletes. So if your favorite wide receiver is not on the list, they might just be an athlete.
All right. Spoiler alert, Ron, though. But let's talk a little bit about some of the best players in the area. Obviously, we have the Alamo Heights kid. What's his? Michael Terry. I think he's really like the top 20 or top 25 recruit.
Yeah, so number one athlete in the state of Texas.
All right. So what are some of these players that we're going to look at to make an impact this year?
Well, you look at Michael Terry. He's definitely he's a top rated athlete. In the recruiting rankings, they have the athlete, which basically is a multi-position player. He's the number one. I think one of the recruiting sites has him number one in the country. Mm-hmm. I talked to him on Saturday, and he's looking at 3 finalists for his recruiting: Oregon, Texas, and Nebraska. So he was hoping to have a decision on that by the end of July, but he said some things happened, some things shifted. So I don't know.
He's a 2-way player. I mean, he played corner. He got an interception in the playoff game that they did lose.
Yeah.
Again, he's one of our top athletes. We have Jalen Cooper. I think one of our top wide receivers, broke the Steel single season receiving yardage and touchdown record last year. Just committed to SMU, one of the top deep threats in San Antonio area, averaged over 23 yards a catch. We have a bunch of good players. I mean, running back, we have a bunch of good guys as well.
What I like about Cooper is he's a very rangy guy, man. He can go up and get balls up in the air. He's really good in the air, getting those 50-50 balls. And Chad Warner has to like having him as a target because Chad Warner's pretty accurate, but if you're just off on that accuracy a little bit, Jalen will get that ball. And I think when you look at we talked about him a little bit, but Royal Capel and Jalen Cooper working as a wide receiver tandem, just amazing because Royal is such a game breaker. He's got just speed. He's got speed to burn.
He's a yak guy. Once he catches it, he can break 3 tackles. He ran 70 yards in there in the state semi.
Yeah, they are just trying to get him in open field, open space, and when you get him in some space, he can break it. And he returns kicks, returns punts because he's got the home run ability. Yeah.
He's an Oklahoma State commit as well, Roy Capel. So you have 2 receivers planning to go to Division I universities, as well as a running back and a quarterback. Their still is by far our most explosive offense. But I know we have some top runners as well. We have Cole Pryor at Reagan, and we have Lauren Bubba Johnson at Johnson High School. I've heard that Lauren might be doing some quarterback type stuff for Johnson this year since they have lost one of our top recruits in Ty Hawkins to IMG. But Lauren had over 1,700 rushing yards, over 10 touchdowns. This should be a really, really big year for the senior year. Lauren coming up. And Cole was an Air Force commit.
Yeah, Cole's an Air Force commit. He's a guy that's been starting for them since he was a sophomore. He has a lot of experience. He's a good back. I mean, I think he had some injury problems last year, but when he's healthy, he's good. And he's not a big guy, but he's strong. They run him inside.
Power back.
He's a power back. He's not big. He's got those strong legs, and he could find the holes. I mean, he's tiny enough to find holes, and he's good.
Yeah, Cole Pryor reminds me so much of Devontae Freeman. If you know, former Florida State running back, Atlanta Falcons running back, small 5'9" running back, but can break big runs. But if your pad level is not good enough, you will be on your back. So I think with Reagan having a new quarterback this year, they might lean on Cole as one of the seniors on the team. Yeah,
kind of another little running back that he plays on the 4A level at Davenport. Barrett Fallon, he's a guy had a great sophomore season. I think they're going to lean on him a lot more because they lost a lot of their offensive weapons last year when they made that run to the quarterfinals, I believe, or the semifinals. But he, I think he's a guy that's capable of putting up 2,000 yards if they feed him the ball. Yeah.
All right, quick technical question. I'm going to cut y'all off for a second. Is make sure if you're submitting your questions, you use the Q&A button on this chat and not the chat button. That's pretty key to. Otherwise, I will not see it. I have the Q&A pulled up. I do not have the chat pulled up. So if you're putting anything in the chat, you are invisible to this this panel discussion. So my apologies. So hit that Q&A button and send us some questions. But what are some of the other storylines that we need to be looking out for, guys?
Well, one thing that and Ron touched on it a little bit when I was compiling the 6A rankings, I initially had Johnson as our number 2 team, and that changed when Ty Hawkins transferred out to IMG. And I didn't know where to put Johnson. And well, we'll find out Sunday, I guess, when we release them. But that they dropped, and it's to me they're such a mystery team because, you know, not having your quarterback who's been there, such a playmaking quarterback who's going to be in his 3rd year. That's a tough thing. It's a tough thing, especially if Bubba was taking reps at quarterback. That kind of tells you a little bit about how they're trying to figure that out. I don't know if that's a storyline, but that's definitely, this is definitely one of the top teams in San Antonio, potentially, that is really trying to figure things out. And then Reagan's going to be up there in that district. I think they've won 3 out of the last 4 district championships. And that may have put them back in the position to add another one. Then
Johnson lost their top linebacker as well, who's one of our defensive player of the year.
They got some holes to fill there. Brennan, to me, is going to be an interesting team because they kind of, not that you have a rebuilding year in high school football, I guess. They played a lot of young guys last year, Brennan did, because they had that run with the DeBose guys, the DeBose twins. And then they graduated a lot of guys off that team.
Yeah.
But they went with a lot of young guys, they went with a lot of youth. And I think they're ready to kind of get back into the ranks again and win that district, that Northside district. Harlan won it last year. But that youth movement that they had, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, they have a bunch of talent. I mean, I went to Brennan last year.
Yeah.
We did coaches coordinator. I got a chance to talk to their offensive coordinator, who's now at Churchill, and their defensive coordinator. I think it's now at Warren.
He's at Warren. Yeah, they lost their coordinator.
They did lose 2 coordinators. So and I think they were really good coaches. Clearly, they're head coaches now. But Caden Glass is a quarterback. I've just seen his off-season stuff. Seemed like he's been working a lot, just to become a better passer. Last year, he was more of a dual threat player, but he seemed to, after kind of starting the season off pretty rough, he seemed to kind of get it going towards the end of the year.
Yeah, and that was a tough spot for him. You following up with Ashton DeBose, who just put up big number.
4,000 plus yards.
That's hard. One guy I really like from Brennan is a defensive guy, Tristan Escobar. He's kind of a hybrid guy.
He plays the star position, the slot.
He plays that safety. He can play linebacker. He could do run support. He could play out and coverage. He's really in the mold of Tyler Turner, who's as far as I know, still at Oregon. He kind of in that mold, that's kind of the position that he plays. That's the kind of the role he plays. But when he was a sophomore, he was kind of like he was playing on the outside. He was a corner. He would go man to man. And so he's got those skills, and now he's got the strength. And I think he's one of those sneaky good defensive guys. And Brennan's just got I don't know, they're kind of like an interesting team to me because I think they're ready to kind of take the mantle back there. And another interesting team is Brandeis because Kemi Lewis is their coach. He took over from Charles Bruce, who is now an assistant athletic director in Northside. Kemi got there kind of late, but the one thing that he did, he was the defensive coordinator at Harlan for a couple of years. But prior to that, he worked at Memorial over at Edgewood. And if you know anything about Memorial and Edgewood and in Kennedy, they struggle, but he got them to the playoffs. I think they won a district championship with him while he was there, which was a major accomplishment. So this is a guy that clearly knows how to turn things around. And Brandeis has been kind of they've been kind of like a middle of the road type team, kind of a team that gets to the playoffs, whereas, maybe about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, they were a team that was making runs. And I think they might have enough talent there where they can start doing that again. And I think Kemi Lewis is the perfect coach to do that.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. That was actually one of our questions in our chat. So just giving an acknowledgement to the whoever that was an anonymous attendee attend that. But don't forget to put your name in here. I'll mention that as well. But yeah, they wanted to know about Brandeis and the new head coach. So I appreciate you answering that one. Other people were wondering about Brennan. I think they said they were in a rebuilding year and went to the 3rd round. So, that was Mark commenting there. We started this conversation talking about weather. So Anthony Franz, our weather specialist here at the Express News, wants to know, I guess we got his attention because he wants to know if there's a dark horse team in our district or in our area. Who is it?
A dark horse team.
A dark horse.
I guess.
Team you would not expect.
Well, that's a great question.
Maybe Harlan or something. A team like that.
Harlan would be interesting because they're looking for a new quarterback. But man, if they find a quarterback, my God,
a lot of talent on the team.
They got Peyton Matthews at wide receiver. Javier Graham is kind of
one of our fastest players, I would say.
He had such a great sophomore year last year, right? And I think if they find a quarterback, which is not easy, obviously, but if they find one, to get it to Peyton Matthews is a playmaker, and he is a guy that can just, he's got breakaway ability. But I don't know if Harlan is necessarily a dark horse, but they could be kind of one of those sneaky good teams. I know that's such a giveaway, throwaway.
Oh, yeah.
That's a give up phrase right there.
Yeah. Sneaky good team.
But people know what it means though. I don't know. That's an interesting, another one that could be just because they're in a different division as Bernie. Bernie, they're moving up from, 4A to 5A Division 2, and I was out there yesterday talking to Shea Hendricks and his two sons. Who quarterback is Hank, and his other son is Hudson, linebacker. He's kind of linebacker slash kind of what do you call it? Short yardage, one yard line guy. Yeah. They kind of line him up in a wildcat, and they just try to. And they have such a great offensive line there in Bernie. They just try to find him a little room, and he's gonna bulldoze his way in there. I say they have that. They're kind of like that just because they're playing at a different level, and they're going to play in a really tough district with Alamo Heights. With Kerrville Tivy, which has, they haven't been as good lately, but they are capable of being good. But I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily a dark horse, but it was certainly, if Bernie's able to make a run in this level, I think that would surprise me, honestly, just because it is a different level.
I mean, like Hank, this is his second year as a starting quarterback. Yeah. They have a bunch of receivers, running backs. They always, like you say, have a top offensive line. Yeah. We just haven't seen them against, top 5A competition. Yeah. And again, in week 1, they do play Piper, a team that made a run last year. Yeah. So I think it should be a really, really good week 1 game. I think the game is at Piper High School as well.
Yeah, it's at Piper. It's next Thursday. And, Bernie's got their offensive lineman, Logan Schramm, who's I think he's committed to TCU now, but he was I think he's a 4-star old lineman. He was a sophomore on that wall of Bernie offensive line when they made it to the state championship. And their offensive, and I don't know, I think the offensive line coach shared this with me then when I did a story on him. He told me I got a really good, they had 4 seniors and Logan, and Logan was a sophomore. And he said, Logan is probably the best of all just because of he's a big guy. Yeah. And just because of his upside in college, or just the potential recruiting wise. I think that was just one of the things that he was pointing out to, and it's turned out to be that way. But yeah, I don't know. I like dark horse.
It's tough.
It's hard. I don't see one necessarily, but then you don't really start to see those teams emerge till like maybe 3rd, 4th week, where there's always those teams where you didn't expect a whole lot of, and then they kind of blossom. So,
yeah, because we didn't really know that Piper necessarily would make that type of run into the season. We know who was going to be the quarterback. Yeah, quarterback kind of broke out from nowhere.
Well, and they were they were a fairly new program, so there were so many unknowns there. It's like when Davenport made their run last year to the state semis, right? State semis. I'm getting that right.
State semis are quarters.
I should know that, but we didn't really know what Davenport had, but they had such a great team, and that team really evolved. And so I don't know. Dark horse is in, maybe Roosevelt. I don't know. Maybe Roosevelt. I think Roosevelt's got a chance to be
first year head coach.
Yeah.
Been with the program for, I think over a decade is either
and he went
player.
He went to Roosevelt. Yeah. Matt Carroll took that job over at Killeen, and this should be seamless. I don't know. Sorry, we don't have, there's no apparent dark horse.
Well, so. This is wrapping up that. A comment from Mark here says, a dark horse has to surprise someone, and no one surprises knowledgeable people like David and Ron because y'all know it. So no one's going to surprise you. If you know who they're all the teams are going to be good anyway. So.
Hopefully.
Who was that? Mark Kutzen? Mark. Yeah, I know who.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Sorry, Mark. I can't pronounce your last name.
You know who he is, though. So
Yeah,
again,
all that matters.
you know everything. Tougher question here from Richard Alexander wants to know, how do you rank the first four in 28 6A? So who's going to make the playoffs in that district?
28 6A.
28 6A. Break out the spreadsheet. I know you have it.
28 6A. Oh, that's the North Side district.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you think, man? I got Brennan like Brennan, like in order, or just the four are gonna make the playoffs?
Just four to make the playoffs. I think that's all Richard wants to know.
Okay,
will his team make the playoffs?
I got Brennan, Harlan. Taft is always good. I don't know if they have I think they've got a pretty good amount of experience coming back. They're always tough. Ricky stayed. Hope I'm saying that. I'm sorry, guys. I spell your names. I don't say them. But he's a great coach, and he's really turned that program around. Taft was traditionally just a down and out type program. He's got him in the playoffs. He's got him competitive. The team that I think, and this might count as a dark horse, Sotomayor, third-year program. Juan Morales is coaching that team. He turned things around at Highlands when he was there. He's kind of the perfect coach for this particular program, but this is their third year. They lost a couple of district games by, I think, a total of 3 points last year. That probably kept
played tough, physical team.
Yeah, and this is their third year. They've got enough experience to where they should be making a run there. But my four out of that district are going to be Brennan, Harlan, Taft, and Sotomayor, and Warren will be in there too, I think.
Yeah, and I know Connor's been kind of in like you say, there's no real rebuild in high school.
Yeah.
But they've been trying to, kind of, I guess, bring their way out. They do play with Brandeis to start the season off. So that will kind of be a test to see, how good O'Connor will be this year. But it's kind of too tough to say if O'Connor will be able to make the playoffs this year. But I think the four that David listed, great defense. They were one of our, most playmaking turnover, type of defenses last year. So I think Taft is pretty good. Yeah.
The thing about O'Connor, they don't have a lot of guys coming back. So that's going to be tough. And they had such a great run a few years ago, and then they've there's a bit of a drought there. So it's going to be tough for them. But, David Molesky, he's been the coach there for a while. He's one of the best coaches in San Antonio. He's kind of the thing about Molesky that I like is that I think, and I haven't charted it, but if you charted every one of his kickoffs that he does, I would say about 40% of them are onside kicks. He likes to steal possessions. He likes to steal that kind of thing. And I know they work on it because they do it so much. It's almost like if I'm a special teams coach on the other side, I'm almost trying to defend that and not worry about coverage. I don't know how clearly as a sports writer, I don't know how coaching works. That's part of it right there. Mm-hmm. But
he's our biggest trickster in our area. He is. Be running some hook and ladders too.
He likes to do those side plays, especially on special teams. So
feeling like you said, just get the offense more possession at the bit.
Yeah, just trying to steal a possession and then just trying to help his team. So that's what he does, and it works about half the time, which is not bad.
Pretty good.
Not because the other team is probably expecting it. So,
all right. Well, we got some out of the box questions here that I think are interesting topics. So we're going to go with one. Maybe y'all can speak to that a little bit. But one, an anonymous person asked about NIL, and that's kind of a tactic college game, and there's a lot of debate about that going to the high school ranks. Any thoughts on that and how that could change the future of high school football?
Well, at coaching school, that was addressed by the UIL. They're basically waiting for the Texas legislature to say what they can and cannot do. That's what UIL does. They basically are going to take not their orders, but they're going to take their guidance from what the legislator does. And that question was asked to the UIL officials. So until however the legislation wants to do that, that's
for our less savvy high school sports viewers, what exactly is the UIL and what do they do?
UIL is the governing body for the public schools here for extracurricular activities in Texas, the University Interscholastic League. They're the ones who they form the policies and the rules and everything for everything. And it's basically the way that works is that all the superintendents, that's kind of a whole process, and I'm not going to get too much in the nuance of it, but it's a whole process where superintendents. They form all these committees and they explore all these types of options and all these things, and then they propose them to the superintendents, and then they're voted on, and then they get approved. I think that's what it is generally.
They're the law and order of public schools.
And they, when a star kid transfers to a program, they're the ones who determine whether that's for athletic purposes.
And that's what could change with the NIL, right? Isn't that the whole? Couldn't that disrupt that whole entire process?
And most states do the kind of what David said. They wait for legislation to happen before they enact any type of NIL stuff. But I think some states in high school, you can, use your name, image, and likeness to make money. Again, that is not legal in the state of Texas. But if that did happen to come to a place like San Antonio, it could change things for some schools and maybe more, wealthy areas of the city. Yeah.
And I think, honestly, it's so hard to speculate on how that's going to work because we don't know. And and just based on their coaching school, what they told us, it doesn't sound like that's anything that's on the horizon. I think it's something they know they're going to have to address at some point. But again, they're going to wait for the Texas legislature to figure that out, and then they'll basically just use that as their guidance.
And usually for something like name, image, and likeness to come to the table, someone has to be pushing for it. And I don't know who's pushing for it. Like coaches aren't pushing for it.
No.
Even the athletes I haven't really heard pushing for it.
No.
Parents. So there has to be somebody that's like the face of the movement. And right now the movement has no face.
I think for the most part, and this is just anecdotally speaking, I don't think coaches are in support of it. So I don't see it being a major push by anything to the point where it would be like UIL is establishing a policy on it. Now that could change, or maybe there's some stuff in the back channels that I'm not aware of, but I'm not, I really don't know. But this is one of those things where I know it's been talked about. It's up there. And so that's the start of it. Where it leads to, I don't know.
Yeah, and we're still early with NIL stuff. I mean, this
that's
is
at the high school
season
level.
4 or 5 in general, even in college. So it probably will take time for it to trickle down.
And I think you see some kids already trying to establish a brand for themselves by maybe like doing YouTube, shows,
podcasts. Yeah.
So maybe when they get to college, they already have a name, and maybe they can, put their NIL, their name, sell that once they get to college, where they can do that, where that's legal. So I don't know. That's kind of how I see it.
All right. Yeah, we got one more kind of out of the box question here that I'll address. I don't know if we'll have a lot of answers for, but long term, we all know concussions and injuries play a big role in football.
Yeah.
With the Olympics looking at flag football, is that something that you think that UIL would ever adapt, or do you think it will replace the game of football that we have today in, say,
no,
15, 20 years?
No.
Are we too ravenous for our football?
Yeah, not replace.
This is Texas, right? We're not going to get rid of it.
Well,
7v7, but I don't know UIL.
Well, no, it's a spring thing, and now there is now you mentioned flag football. I think if UIL does go that direction, it's going to be for girls, because there are girls flag football leagues up in the Dallas area. They're kind of like club teams. So I think that was brought up in like a possible sport to pass. Every year UIL considers all these sports, these suggested sports or whatever sports that they want to pass. And I think any UIL any flag football that UIL regulates or whatever, probably come on the girls' side. So, but definitely not on the boys.
Not on the boys. They do have that.
Not in my lifetime.
That crown now that you wear on helmets sometimes during practice.
Yeah.
We see some players in the NFL starting to wear that actually during games.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked if if parents say maybe 5 years, maybe a mom is like, hey, you can either play football with the protection on the helmet or you can't play. That's probably
where it's going to head, but not full flag football.
Not full flag.
And to be honest with you, I don't want to watch a flag football game, and I don't want.
You didn't like watching the Pro Bowl, and don't they do something like the?
Yeah,
are you going to fill a stadium with flag football?
No. I didn't even know about the Pro Bowl, the being flag football for sure, because I didn't watch it.
I stopped watching just the regular football game a lot.
Well, I mean that's a fair point. It didn't mean much anymore, right?
Flag. Texans love their football. I mean, too much. I mean, So I can't see that.
Any
league. Yeah, it's always it's a very good way to work on skill based stuff. And they seem like the 7v7 stuff throughout like the spring and summer has been.
Yeah, and they do have that, and they actually have like a state tournament or whatever. But I don't see that being something UIL would handle. Not on the boys' side.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Another question. What are y'all expectations from the local TAPS football teams for this upcoming season?
Well, the one that stands out to me right now is Holy Cross. They basically have all their starters back.
Yeah.
They played for the TAPS Division III state championship last year against a really good Dallas Christian team that had some FBS guys on that team, and they played them pretty well. I think they for a half anyway, but they got everybody coming back, man. And I think they're going to make a run. They're going to open up with Antonian next week. That's going to be a big test for them because they're, in TAPS football, especially here in San Antonio, to be a Division III team playing a Division I team, that's a big step up. And they have a great quarterback, Gibby Alvarado.
On our top 5 list again.
Yeah,
go view that.
Yeah, go view him. He's great. He's a great quarterback. He's a great leader on that team. He's I think a third-year starter now. But yeah, that's the one team that really stands out to me, head and shoulders above anyone. As far as a team that has a chance to win a state title, it's Holy Cross. I think Antonian's in a little bit of a rebuilding mode, and not sure about Central Catholic. They have a new coach there, so I don't know.
Yeah, Antonian, great coach there with Blake Fushak. But they've lost their quarterback. They've lost their leading receiver. I'm not sure who's going to be the starting running back there. I think they're also replacing him. There's just a lot of, moving parts for Antonio, one of our better teams from last year. And Central Catholic usually has a pretty good offensive line, but the skill positions haven't, stretched out at least yet. So we have to kind of wait and see what Central Catholic can do.
And the thing is, Holy Cross is going to get tested because they're going to have Antonian. They're going to play Central Catholic. So we're going to really know, if they could beat those teams, I think they got a chance to win the TAP state championship. So
wow. And then, all right. One thing to point out, Sunday's paper, we're going to have a high school football preview.
Yeah.
Top teams. We're going to have a look at some of the top players as well. We'll have all the schedule. You want to know your team schedule? We'll have all the schedules in the paper. We're going to have, David has worked tirelessly on doing capsules for every single team. You want to know why he's so knowledgeable? Because he's already written the capsules for all of these teams. And that's going to be in the paper on Sunday. So I want to push that out. And of course, it'll be on expressnews.com to like out all of our content as well.
Yes.
And Ron's been pushing out the top 5 players at each position this week. That'll all be in the paper on Sunday and then online on expressnews.com. So if you want even more high school football content beyond what these guys have already told you, which, it's hard to believe because I've already told you a lot, go to expressnews.com and check out the Sunday edition of the paper.
Well, I think we've touched on some of the stories we're going to do. Michael Terry, I'm doing a profile on Michael Terry. I'm going to do something on Bernie's the Hendricks family there. Ron's working on a story on Burbank. And I think Burbank is a team that, Burbank has been one of those teams. They're one of the, hockey has, what do they call them? The original 6 or whatever they call them or whatever.
Yeah.
Or whatever they call. Burbank is probably the equivalent of that to San Antonio.
Yeah, early 1900s.
Yeah. And they are the favorites to win that district. And I can't imagine the last time that Burbank was a favorite to win a district. They haven't won a district title since 1978. But this team, they're loaded, man. And I don't know. And then
Hernandez was again on our top 5 quarterbacks. If they win 9 games this year, this would be the only time in the school's history they've won 9 games in back-to-back years. Just 9 games. They win a playoff game. This is their first playoff win in school history.
And the school is how old?
Oh, they better.
20s, I think.
Yeah, I think they started playing in the 20s.
So we're talking about 100 years of football.
100 years of football, 0 playoff win. They are 0-12.
Yeah, and
their coach.
They haven't won a playoff game. But man, if they win a district title, there,
it's huge as well.
I mean, it's 1978. Who was alive in 1978 in this room?
I wasn't. Ron was. Ron for sure wasn't.
I definitely was.
I was. And not only that, I was 10. But anyway,
David was busy watching Charlie Angel's episodes.
I was watching Charlie Angel's episodes, and I was listening to. What was I listening? We won't care. Village People or something. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Burbank, like I said, there's a lot of talent. Ryan Vasquez, just a huge defensive lineman, gets a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Their district's defensive player of the defensive player of the year.
And that's a district last year. Yeah, he was a defensive player of the year last year in a district that had Alamo Heights. To me, that tells me a thing. Kevin Hernandez, and you've seen him play. I've seen him play. He is one of the most exciting players out there, man. He's a dual threat. And he's a playmaker, man. they like to get him again. If he could just get past that line, get to the linebackers, he's gone, man.
Yes.
You're not going to catch him.
Like he has games where he's like accounted for
shifty.
5+, like either he's thrown or rushed, like combined like 5 or more touchdowns.
Yeah, he's very shifty, man. He's very shifty. And last year I covered when Alamo Heights and Burbank played, I covered that game, and Kevin had a great game against a really good team. I mean, he made Alamo, and I think Ron Ruderman said, and he said, yeah, they made us work, and they exposed a lot. He exposed a lot of flaws that they had on defense. Mm-hmm. And I think he said, we're going to look it up. And you see, he almost like thanked him. Thank you for showing us what we were doing wrong. Yeah. And so they could make those adjustments.
Pocket so easily by time.
Yeah.
And if you don't have time, like I say, if he gets to that second level, it can be over.
And I think it's just made for them to win this district. They have to be the team to beat. And again, to say that about Burbank as a team to beat in district, that's, to me, I mean, maybe people can chime in from San Antonio who've been here all their lives. That's insane, I think.
Yeah, I mean, 1978 is a very, very, very long time ago. Yeah. To come, in district, since Alamo Heights is now out of that district, they have a real good chance. If they again win 9 games, this will be the first time in the school's history. If they win a playoff game, first time in school's history. I'll be doing a story on Burbank just to talk about. They have a chance to really make their mark. And I talked to Kevin Hernandez at Burbank. He's taken a lot of that load on. He's one of the leaders. I think his teammates voted him to be like a captain for some of the games. It should be a really good team. I think they'll be a fun watch. Yeah, the thing with them is that they are going to be in Region 3, and they're going to share the same pod with Liberty Hill. So they won't play them in the first round if they win district. Unlikely, but still, it's a tougher path. But I think right now, if Burbank wins a district championship, I think they got a chance to win that playoff game, and that would be a big deal.
That would be a huge deal.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of realignment in District 3, we have someone wanting to know about URL realignment, and they're asking about the old 27-6A and why was it moved to 29? And how does that kind of change things? I know that's very specific there.
Well, I don't know why it was moved. I didn't ask UIL that, so but it does change, and I think we alluded to it earlier. Basically, for 27 6A, which is the Northeast and teams with Brandeis and Clark, it just makes it a tougher path in the second round, where you're more than likely going to meet up with if you get past your first round game, you're more than likely going to meet up with one of those Austin powerhouses, Westlake, Lake Travis, I think, those teams.
Vandergrift. No.
Yeah. So it's a tougher path. 29, the old where Judson and Steele and those teams, Clemens, it's just an easier path because it goes through South Texas. And again, I'm a Valley guy. I don't like to dog on my guys, but it's an easier path. That's just historically, if we could chart it. It's just an easier path. And but why it was done, I don't know why.
Yeah, they don't tell you. I remember we were at the UIL realignment when everyone was finding out the different districts. It was mayhem.
Yeah, it was mayhem in there, and it was there was not a lot of time for me to process. Like, oh wait, they just shifted everything around. So, yeah, but. I don't know. I guess
none of the coaches have seemed to complain about it.
That's a great question.
none of the coaches have complained in our interviews. Like, oh man, they moved our no coach.
Well, if they don't have to play Lake Travis, they're not going to complain.
Yeah. So no one said
they're going to be over there popping champagne, not complaining.
And one interesting thing is Medina Valley. They're in 36A. They were a 5A team, and now they're a 6A team.
Tough.
And they're building another high school over there in Medina Valley. All the population has exploded so much there at that Castroville area that they're building another high school. And I was thinking initially when I saw them going up to 6A, I didn't know if this was going to be a temporary thing where, they're going to build a new high school and maybe it'll even things out and they go back down to 5A. But I don't know if that's going to happen because I think the population is growing that much over there. And I think they're pretty far off the far above the 6A enrollment cutoff that they might be in 6A. Now, if you're going to be and they were kind of like an okay 5A program, but they have a lot of experience coming back. They're in a district where I think they can be competitive. I think they're going to be in the running for a playoff spot there with Del Rio, El Paso, and four Laredo schools. I know when I talked to the coach out there, Andrew Britt, he was not happy because of the travel. He knew the potential travel was going to be a burden, not only for football, but for the other sports. but they have a lot of experience. They have a lot of like 2-3 year type guys. So I think if you're going to play 6A for the first time, at least have some experience, and then play in a district that I think is one that I think they can be competitive in.
Yeah. And I'm really excited to see Southwest High School.
Yes.
They just have schools that just has a ton of athletes, a ton of 2A players.
Yeah.
You have Tyson Dean, who I think is committed to the University of Idaho, which was, I think a very, cool commitment that I saw.
Yeah.
He's a DB, but also plays running back, but also plays wide receiver. He just does it all for that team. Same with Azarian Voss. He was like the Texas, one of the players of the week last season.
Right.
Just had a big, week with over 3 touchdowns, I think, in the game. He also plays DB. They just have a ton of athletes at Southwest with a coach that's been there for a while.
Yeah. Alex Franco and Southwest, they've traditionally, I mean, it doesn't matter who the coach has been. They have guys that go both ways, and they have to, just because they don't have a big roster size, but they have guys, and they're just tough guys out there. It's a tough district.
I think the quarterback is supposed to be his son.
His son, yeah. Southside's in that district. They do the same thing. They got a lot of 2A guys, and they got a lot of scrappers and
speed.
And then Jay is actually in that district now. Jay is rebuilding because they basically lost. They graduated so many people, but they're built in that same mode. It's kind of interesting that they ended up in this district because they have that same mentality. They have they're tough-minded kids down there in that part of town, and they build their football teams around that type of mentality, I think. So Jay, being in that district, it's almost fitting that they were in that district.
Yeah, like personality-wise.
Because it fits the mold of that team and the team that Gary Gutierrez has built over there.
Yeah, I mean, those teams practice the same. I mean, you go to Southwest High School, like I told David, I mean, October, they're still hitting in practice,
They were still hitting hard.
It wasn't like, they're just passing the ball in practice. Like, no, they were full contact. You go to Jay, it's full contact. Like, maybe they're not hitting the quarterback, but overall, these are physical teams that they're practicing, tackling well, even in the middle of the season.
Yeah, you can't be a physical team on the field if you're not practicing it. And they do.
Practice physical.
And they do, yeah.
All right. Luke Lawhorn, one of our I know, right? one of our freelance writers. You'll see his name in the paper a few times this year. He covers a lot of high school football, and he's covering some high school volleyball for us. Wants to know what team is going to make the biggest leap this season. Leap? What's the most improved team?
The most improved team. That is a great question. I don't know.
It's kind of like that dark horse thing, like they catch you out of nowhere, right?
It's almost like
I am excited to see Piper. I keep bringing him up. Yeah. They do have a new quarterback, and from just what I've heard, this is supposed to be one of the top quarterbacks in the area. I think I named him as an honorable mention just from calling different people. Like, hey, no, this is a real quarterback. I don't think it's considered a transfer, David, when you leave, but he left another school, went to Piper, and
I think he was at Southside.
I think he was at Southside. So. I just think, with them having a top receiver that I think has gotten his first Division I offer at UIW, Isaiah Champagne, with some returning stars on the defensive side, with, the program getting older and older and older, and they're starting to set traditions. I don't know if they can, they went pretty far last year, so I don't know if they'll be able to do that again. Yeah. I think they'll be really competitive.
Well, they're going up a division, and I think it's a pretty big leap to go from Division II to Division I in 5A. Especially in the district that they're going into. But yeah, again, it's hard to figure out that team that's going to make a leap when you just don't know what you have. I think a lot of our top teams from last year just lost a lot of talent. So there doesn't seem to be that team that was kind of, not apparently anyway, that I can see that's kind of that team that was maybe the third, fourth spot in district that has everybody back that's ready to make a leap. That to me, that was Burbank. To me, that if you're gonna talk about a team that's ready to make a leap, it's Burbank.
Yeah, maybe Brandeis.
Brandeis. Yep.
I think Brandeis was under 500 last year,
and I think Brandeis is just because they got some great talent. I think if Trey Pepito is healthy and he's ready to go, and look, Cammy Lewis is a great coach, man. He's a great coach. Yeah, and I think that that just might be enough in there to kind of give them that leap and really be competitive in a really tough district.
They have some good receivers, some strong, tall receivers.
Yeah, Jalen Baker, man. He made an unbelievable catch last year against O'Connor over at the Alamo Dome. I think it may have been a one-handed catch, maybe a little bit behind him. And he just
Odell Beckham in there.
And he ringed it in. I don't know if he took it to the house, but he got really close to the goal line if he didn't.
Trey's an athlete. I mean, I'm not sure since he's come back from injury how much they'll run him early.
Yeah,
but he usually gets the ball to his big targets, and since the targets they have a lot of tall wide receivers, I wouldn't be shocked if Brandeis comes out and really scores some points.
Yeah,
that rivalry game versus O'Connell.
I mean, I give Brandeis, just given the fact that Ty Hawkins is no longer at Johnson. Reagan is always a solid team. Brandeis might be the team that can sneak in there and win that district title. So we'll see. Yeah.
All right, we're about to wrap up. So if you have any other questions, hit that Q&A button, send them along, guys. What storylines have we not hit on so far that you'd like to kind of point out? Where have we not gone? We've covered a lot of ground today, and I appreciate everyone who's joined us. Talking high school football, we've hit a lot. I know we got a lot, very, very specific on some of these things, but David and Ron just know everything. So that's it. So ask your questions away.
We're trying to pretend we know everything.
We're trying to pretend.
I think New Braunfels High School is moving down.
They're going to 5A. They're going to 5A.
Yeah, we haven't
lose some. They have lost some people.
What teams are moving down that it could really improve? I mean, when you go up, it's really tough. But when you move down, what teams are we kind of looking at? I mean,
has a shot. They just have lost a lot of people, and they have a new coach, so they're just such an unknown. They usually have a great program though at New Braunfels. They usually have a lot of talent there. So I wouldn't be shocked if they, were still a pretty good team. And since they're moving down, the competition does get a little bit easier.
Yeah, just the fact that they were in the fact whatever kids they have coming back, they were in the same district with the Judsons, with the Steels, with the Clemens, which is probably I think is our toughest 6A district. And just the fact that they know that type of competition. But they're in a really tough district with I think they're with Bernie and Alamo Heights and all that. So that's a tough district. So, but they shouldn't be freaked out over it. They shouldn't be surprised by it.
They played tough competition before.
Yeah. So I think that's one team. Yeah. I think that's,
see what they do.
Yeah. I think they have enough guys coming back to where they should be able to make that district be competitive in a really, really tough.
That should be a really good district.
Yeah.
Whoever comes out of that district is going to be battle tested.
Yeah. Jay going down is interesting, just to be a 5A after they were so great in 6A. But then they graduated everybody. So
yeah, it does.
And then Medina Valley, I think we mentioned them going up to 6A. That's going to be interesting because I don't think Andrew Britt was. I think he knew that he was going up to 6A, but I don't know. I remember talking to him that day. I don't know. I guess it's just like everything else. We're trying to process what all these districts.
Yeah,
he's probably calculating in his mind how much all the travel.
Yeah, just going to schedule some games.
All that.
Yeah, right. So I mean, there's a lot of teams that moved up and down. I think they'll be really fun just to see how they adjust to the competition.
Well, one team I want to mention is Judson, because Judson obviously they won the most state championships from the San Antonio area in history. They're one of those traditional, when you think about Texas high school football in San Antonio, they are the marquee program. But they have really struggled the last few years in terms of just having a winning record. Last year, they won 4 games last year, and one of them was a playoff game. So they went into the playoffs with a 3-7 record or whatever it was. And they haven't had a winning record in about 3 or 4 years. And they've traditionally had the most talent that's come out of here in the last 5 years that have gone to like FBS schools. So to me, I would love to see what Judson does this year because Mark Soto, that's his alma mater. I know that's the place where he's always wanted to coach, and I know he's excited about it. And they have a quarterback there, Elijah Favila, who's I think in his 3rd year. That helps. But I'm eager to see how Judson handles it because I think they are ripe for a really good year. Maybe they're the team that makes a leap. I don't know.
I'm excited to see Elijah, just to see the jump that he's taken. I mean, he's also on the boys basketball team, took a leap there as well. He's just an athlete. So just to see him on the football field again after he seemed like he was getting more comfortable towards the end of the year, especially going into the playoffs.
Right.
To have that off season now, to be going into a big year. This is a big year not only for the quarterback but for the coach as well. It should be fun to watch.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's the team that makes a leap, even though you wouldn't think Judson as a team making a leap, but just given where they've been the last, they could be. I mean,
they can get to 500.
Jack Call's a great receiver. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. And Ruben Torres comments about Poth. It's Poth or
Both. It's both.
It's Poth. Oh, wait, I always got to double check on that. It always slips me up. It says they're going to have a great team this year, and he wants them to go back to Jerry's world. What small school that we haven't talked about so far has a chance at that? We usually have we always have 2 or 3 to sneak through. It seems like.
Well,
Poth is always there. But
Yeah,
Poth would be the one, and Jeff Luna's the coach out there. Jeff is a Poth graduate. His son Major Luna's would be the quarterback. Major had his son is
named Major.
Yeah,
that's a great first name.
Major Luna.
Jeff knows how to name his kids. Jeff. So Major Luna, he tore his ACL last year. He actually tore it 2 years ago when they made it to the 7-on-7 state championship. I think he tore it at that tournament.
Yeah.
So he was out last year. He's back. Both lost a lot of guys last year, but it's okay. It's 3A. No, it's 3A Division II football. If you have the talent, if you just have the raw talent there, you're going to make a run. And I think they're poised for it. They usually have a pretty good offensive line. And they have enough guys coming back where I think they're going to make a run. I think their junior varsity was undefeated last year, so they're going to be pulling in they're going to be whatever guys they have to fill in the holes. They've obviously had some success, so I think that's a big thing too. But yeah, Poth is one. Usually we get like a Falls City in there. They have a great athlete. Oh my God, Braylon Johnson, I think is his name. He's a quarterback. He's one of those all everything. I mean, this is 2A football, so you're playing everything.
Yeah,
and he's one of those guys. But is he enough? I think Falls City usually makes a run. I don't know. I don't see anybody else.
Davenport is not, I guess.
Davenport's 4. Yeah, they're 4A. They're 4A. Basically 3A down. And I don't see anybody else that maybe Jordanton. They're usually okay. Maybe Randolph. I don't know. But as far as making a state run to Jerry World, I think the best one from sub 4A is probably Poth and 3A Division II.
All right. What's the one last thing that y'all want to touch on before we get out of here?
That's a great question.
I know it is.
That's the hardest question.
Have we talked about Bernie Champion?
We haven't talked about Bernie Champion, not too much.
Yes, I know Bernie Champion lost. I mean, Jordan Ballin was one of the top quarterbacks in the area last year.
Baseball player.
And one of our top baseball players as well. He's no longer there. I mean, I'm very interested to see kind of what Bernie Champion does with a new quarterback there. Yeah,
I think it's going to be interesting. I think they've been okay, but they lost a lot of key guys. Losing Jordan Ballin is tough.
He's a good player. He's a great player.
So I don't know. Try to think of anything else we may have missed. I don't know if someone in the chat say, "Hey, you didn't talk about them or that." I don't know.
Yeah, we talked about a bunch of teams.
Yeah.
Is there any
team I can't think of anything
that we're missing?
We could talk about music if you want.
Mark Kusenberger.
Oh no.
He said it's a pronunciation. It's Kusenberger.
He's gonna ask a real question.
Well, no, he just said Fall City versus Shriner should be an excellent game.
Oh, okay. Shiner.
Yeah. So
big fan of it. Anyway.
So
got some sub 4A football for us.
Yeah.
See, Mark would know. See, Mark knows those types of questions.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Mark.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone joining us today for another In Vivo from the Express News live. We enjoyed chatting with all of y'all. We'll be back again sometime, and we haven't set one in stone, but I hope we do. Thank you to Ron today. Thank you to David. Again, I'm Nick Talbot, the sports editor of the Express News. So as always, check out expressnews.com and check out the Sunday edition of the Express News, where we'll have our full high school football preview. And once again, thank you for joining us.